When I saw that sight, my heart went cold. The buzzards were closing in on the baby, spreading their black wings, narrowing the gap with every hop. They weren't in a hurry. They knew time was on their side. The baby's cry was weak, almost silent, as he sat on the parched ground covered in dust. It wasn't a cry of desperation. It was a cry of exhaustion, the cry of someone who had nothing left to give. A few yards away, a woman lay face down, unconscious. Her body was slumped to the side, face masked in red dirt, one arm stretched toward the baby, as if she'd tried to shield him until her very last breath. One of the buzzards tilted its head. Another took 2 steps forward. In that moment, I knew. If I waited a few more seconds, those birds weren't going to wait any longer. Some days, silence weighs heavier than a sack of cattle feed. I woke up before sunrise, as I always do. The house was too quiet. It wasn't the silence of peace, it was the silence of absence, the kind you carry in your chest even when your mouth is shut. It's been nearly 7 years since Sarah passed. Cancer took her fast, before I could even wrap my head around it. Not that you can ever really prepare for that. You think you can, but when the time comes, the grief hits you just the same, like a flash flood that sweeps everything away. My ranch is out in West Texas, not far from Lubbock, in a stretch of land folks call the middle of nowhere. Good country, green pastures when the rains come, but the kind of dry that cracks the earth when the sun starts beating down. The road that leads out here is nothing but red dirt, crimson as dried blood, riddled with washouts that the rain opens and no one ever bothers to fix. The nearest town is about 12 miles out. I head there once a month when I have to. I buy supplies, pay the bills, trade a few words with the guy at the general store, and head back. I don't have friends, don't have kin nearby. I've learned to live this way. I got out of bed slow. My body aches more these days. 52 years start to feel heavy when you've spent your whole life hauling weight. I went to the kitchen. The old kettle was still on the stove, right where Sarah used to leave it. I made coffee, drank it standing up looking out the window. The day was breaking. The sky had that shade of orange mixed with pink that you only see in the high plains. You can see for miles here, wide open horizon, no buildings, no city noise, just the wind whistling through the brush and the lowing of the cattle off in the distance. I put on my old work shirt, worn-out jeans, and a leather hat that had seen better days, 10 years of them at least. I laced up my boots, grabbed my canteen, and headed out. The front door creaked. I always told myself I'd fix that hinge. Never did. I guess I liked the sound. It was company. The dog lifted his head as I walked by. Rusty, a yellow mutt that showed up here about 3 years ago. Skinny, covered in ticks, half dead. I fed him. He stayed. We understand each other like that, without needing words. "Morning, Rusty." He wagged his tail, stretched his paws, and went back to sleep. I headed to the pens. Had to move some heifers to the other pasture. The grass was getting too thin near the house. I needed to rotate the herd. Doing it alone takes time, but I had the whole day. I always do. The sun was high by the time I finished. The heat was starting to bite, that dry heat that sticks to your skin and makes your throat scratchy. I took a swig from the canteen. The water was lukewarm, but it went down fine. I checked my watch. Past 10. I decided to head to the back pasture. Had some steers out there I hadn't checked on in days. Wanted to make sure they were doing all right. I saddled up my horse, an old sorrel named Thunder. A big name for a calm animal, but he was a good one. Knew the trails, didn't spook easy. I mounted up and followed the trail that cuts across the ranch. The wind hit my face, the smell of dry earth, sagebrush, and sweaty leather, the sound of crickets and cicadas starting their song. The sky was clear, too blue, not a cloud in sight. It took about 40 minutes to reach the back pasture. The fence was holding up. The steers were spread out, grazing slow like they do. I counted them, all accounted for. That's when I saw it. Far off, on the other side of the graze, near the brush line, there was a swarm of buzzards. It wasn't right. You only see buzzards when there's a carcass. But there shouldn't have been anything out there. I gave Thunder a gentle spur. We eased closer. The buzzards were on the ground, pacing in circles. Some were flapping their wings, others just stood there, watching. The closer I got, the clearer it became. There were people there. My chest tightened. I hopped off the horse a few yards back. Didn't want to spook the birds into a frenzy. I walked slow, stepping heavy, making noise on purpose. Then I heard it. A cry. Weak, tired, but a cry nonetheless. A baby. I started moving faster. The buzzards took flight, but they didn't go far. They perched on the mesquite branches nearby, waiting. And then I saw the whole thing. A woman lying on the ground on her side, arm outstretched, face caked in dirt, body still. And about 6 feet away from her, wrapped in a dirty blanket, a baby, crying, alone. The buzzards were closer to the baby. One of them took 2 steps toward the child, tilting its head, sizing him up. My stomach turned. "Get out of here!" I yelled. I ran, I waved my arms, I kicked at the dirt. The buzzards scattered, but they didn't leave. They hovered nearby, watching, as if waiting for me to go away. I picked up the baby first. His little body was light, too small, too thin. The blanket was filthy and damp. The baby clung to my shirt with a strength that didn't seem possible. His eyes were red from crying. His lips were cracked. "Easy, easy," I whispered, not really knowing what to say. I tucked the baby against my chest and went to the woman. I knelt beside her. I touched her neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, faint, but there. She was alive. I turned her face gently. She was young. Maybe 30. Her brown hair was matted to her face with sweat, scratches on her arms, clothes torn, a smudge of dried blood on her forehead. She'd fallen, or been thrown. I looked around. No car, no nothing. Just brush, old fencing, and that patch of dry earth. How did she get here? I shook her lightly. "Ma'am, wake up!" Nothing. The baby cried louder. We had to get out of there, fast. I lifted the woman into my arms. She was heavy, but I've carried heavier loads. I draped her across the saddle, held the baby tight against me, and mounted up carefully. Thunder felt the shift in weight, but he didn't complain. We headed back slow, every step measured. The buzzards followed us halfway. Then they vanished into the sky. The ride back felt like it lasted hours. My mind was racing. Who was this woman? What had happened? Where did she come from? And that baby. By the time I reached the house, the sun was nearly at its peak. The heat was unbearable. Rusty barked when he saw me. He jumped up, sniffing the air. I got off the horse and carried the woman inside. I laid her on the sofa in the living room, the same sofa where Sarah used to sit to watch her shows. It had been years since anyone sat there. The baby wouldn't stop crying. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a clean cloth, soaked it in cool water, and came back. I wiped the woman's face. She didn't stir. The baby was screaming now. Hunger. It was hunger. My head spun. What was I supposed to give a baby? I didn't have formula. I didn't have anything. I thought fast. I grabbed some cow's milk from the fridge, warmed it up a bit, poured it into a small juice glass, tested it on my hand, not too hot. I sat in the chair and gave it to the baby slowly, letting it trickle into his little mouth. He sucked, he swallowed, he cried less. I sat there, feeding him bit by bit, while I watched the woman on the sofa. She was breathing, but she wasn't waking up. I spent the whole afternoon like that, tending, waiting. The sun began to dip, the shadows grew long inside the house. And that's when she opened her eyes. The desperation in her eyes. Her eyes snapped open all at once. It wasn't a slow wake-up, like someone coming out of a nap. It was the awakening of someone who was lost and suddenly finds themselves in a strange place. Desperation hit her before anything else. She tried to sit up too fast. Her body wouldn't obey. She groaned in pain, clutching her head. Her fingers were trembling. "My son!" Her voice came out raspy, broken. "Where is my son?" I was sitting in the chair next to her, the baby asleep in my lap. I'd wrapped him in a clean towel after I managed to get him to drink a little more. "He's right here," I said, standing up slowly so I wouldn't startle her. "He's fine. He's sleeping." She looked at the baby. The tears came instantly. It wasn't a normal cry. It was that sob of someone who thought they'd lost everything and suddenly realizes they still have something left. She reached out her arms, shaking. I carefully placed the baby in her arms. She pulled her son to her chest and wept louder. Her body rocked. Her breath hitched. "Easy now," I tried to say, though I didn't know the right words. "He's okay. You're gonna be okay too." She looked at me. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her face was still dirty even after I'd wiped it. There was a small cut on her eyebrow, another on her lip. Where am I? In my house, my ranch. I found you out in the pasture. You were out cold. The baby was alone. I brought you both here. She shook her head, trying to process it. The confusion in her eyes was real, like her memories were coming back in pieces. He threw us out there, she said, her voice fading. He stopped the car, pulled me out, threw me to the ground. He took my son. She stopped. The crying returned. Quieter now, more exhausted. I tried to run after him, she continued, tried to catch him, but he threw the baby on the ground in the middle of nowhere, and he drove off. I ran. I tried to get to my boy, but I fell. I hit my head on something, and everything went black. I stood there listening, didn't know what to say, didn't know if I should say anything at all. Who did this? I asked softly. She closed her eyes. She hugged the baby tighter. My husband. The word hit the floor like a stone. Husband. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't neglect. It was on purpose. He drinks, she said, her eyes still shut. He drinks and he gets mean. He's always been that way, but it got worse after the baby was born. Said I gave the boy more attention than him. He'd hit me, break things, call me names. She opened her eyes again and looked at me. I tried to leave. I saved up some money in secret. I was gonna run, but he found out. Yesterday morning he woke up still drunk, said he was gonna settle the problem, dragged me to the car, took the baby, and he did this. Her voice trailed off again. I felt something rising in my chest. Anger. That old anger I thought I'd buried along with everything else. Does he know where you are? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know. I don't know where I am. I don't know anything. Do you remember anything? A license plate? A town name? We lived near Plainview. He drove for a long time. I was too scared to pay attention. I just remember the red dust and the heat. Plainview was a ways off, over 60 miles from here. If he'd driven all that way to dump her and the baby in the brush, it was because he wanted to make sure no one would find them, or that by the time they did, it'd be too late. What's your name? I asked. Marlene. And the boy? She looked at her son. She brushed her hand over his little face, gently. Sam. His name is Sam. Nice to meet you, Marlene. I'm Jack. She didn't answer. She just looked at me, too tired for anything else. You need to rest, I said. You hit your head, lost some blood. You need to recover. I can't stay here, she said, her voice weak. He'll look for me. He'll come back, I know he will. He doesn't know where you are. He always finds me. The certainty in her voice made me pause. Then we're just going to have to keep our eyes peeled, I said, firmer than I felt inside. She looked at me like she couldn't believe what I'd just said. Why are you doing this? She asked. Why'd you help me? I stayed quiet, didn't have a ready answer, didn't know how to explain it right. Because it was the right thing to do, I replied. Simple as that. She watched me for a moment longer, then she bowed her head and kissed her son's forehead. I went to the kitchen, warmed up some stew I'd made the day before, put it in a bowl, and went back to the living room. "Eat," I said, holding out the bowl. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. You need to. The boy needs you to stay strong." She hesitated, but took the bowl. She ate slowly with the baby still in her lap. While she ate, I went to the window. I looked out. Night had fallen. The sky was full of stars. You could see the whole Milky Way like a white smear across the heavens. Outside, Rusty barked. I froze. He barked again, louder, more insistent. It wasn't the bark he gave when a critter passed by. It was an alert. My whole body went tense. "Stay here," I told Marlene, my voice low. She caught the tone. The fear came rushing back into her eyes. I grabbed the shotgun leaning against the wall by the door. It was loaded. I always kept it loaded on account of the mountain lions that wandered through sometimes. I opened the door slow. Rusty was standing in front of the house, staring down the driveway. The hair on his neck was bristled. He was barking non-stop. I looked where he was looking. In the middle of the dark, two headlights, a car idling, still far off down by the property entrance, near the old gate. But it was sitting there, waiting. The engine was running. I could hear the low rumble. My heart hammered against my ribs. I raised the shotgun. I aimed it toward the car. I wasn't going to shoot, not yet. But I wanted whoever was in there to know I was watching, and that I was armed. The headlights stayed on, stationary, as if the person inside was weighing the situation. Thinking about the next move, Rusty barked louder. I took a step forward. The light from the house hit my back. Whoever was out there could see me. They could see the gun in my hand. Seconds felt like hours. Then, slowly, the car began to back up. The headlights turned and it drove away. It didn't speed off. It went slow, calculated, like someone who's leaving for now, but isn't giving up. I stood there, listening to the engine fade into the distance. Rusty stopped barking, but he kept his eyes on the road, alert. I took a deep breath. I went back inside. I locked the door, something I never did. I slid the old wooden bolt into place. I closed the shutters. Marlene was standing up, clutching the baby to her chest. Her face was pale. "Was it him?" she asked, trembling. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but someone came up here. And they left when they saw I was armed." She started to cry again, but this time it wasn't relief. It was pure terror. "He's gonna come back," she said, her voice choked. "I know he is. He never gives up, never." I didn't say anything, because I knew she was right. A man who does what that man did doesn't quit easy. I took a kitchen chair and pulled it over by the living room window. I sat down with the shotgun across my lap. "Get some sleep," I told Marlene. "I'm keeping watch." "Aren't you going to sleep?" "Not tonight." She looked at me. She didn't say a word, but something shifted in her eyes, like she finally understood that I wasn't going to let anything happen. She lay down on the sofa with the baby beside her, tucked under the safety of her arm. It was a long night. I stayed right there, peering through the slats in the blinds, shotgun at the ready. Cooper curled up just outside the door. I could hear his steady breathing. I knew he was on alert too. The wind rattled the house. Crickets chirped. Every now and then an owl hooted in the distance, but no car returned. When the sun began to crest the horizon, Molly was still asleep. So was the baby. Their breathing was calm, safe. I stood up slowly. My body ached. My back was putting up a protest. But it didn't matter. I looked at them sleeping there on the sofa that hadn't held a soul in years. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Responsibility, fear, and a strange, fierce urge to protect. It was as if this house, which had been nothing but an empty shell for so long, had turned back into a home. Even if, just for a little while, even if the world was against it. The day after and the First Choice's morning arrived sluggishly, as if it were afraid to wake up to what had happened the night before. I hadn't slept, not a wink. I'd sat in that chair, watching the window, listening to every sound, every gust of wind that rattled the fence, every bird song. Every noise that might or might not be a car coming back. When the first light of dawn started to grey the horizon, I stood up. My body groaned, my back was sore, and my legs felt like lead, but I'd pulled worse shifts in my life. I went to the kitchen and put on the coffee. That strong, dark aroma filled the house. It was a good smell. The kind of smell that reminds you life goes on, even when everything feels like it's standing still. Molly woke up to the sound of the kettle whistling. She shifted on the sofa slowly, like someone who isn't quite sure where they've landed. The baby was beside her, still quiet, breathing deep. She looked up at me. Her eyes were still puffy. Her hair was a mess, but she was awake. She was alive. "Morning," I said softly, not wanting to wake the boy. "Morning," she rasped, her voice thick with sleep. "Coffee?" She hesitated, then nodded. I poured her a mug. I brought out some bread I'd baked a couple of days ago, still good enough, along with some butter and a jar of peach preserves the lady at the general store had given me last month. Molly ate slowly, like someone who hadn't had a real meal in days. And she likely hadn't. "How are you feeling?" I asked, sitting in the chair across from her. "Sore. My head feels heavy, but I'm alive." She looked down at her son. "We're alive." I stayed quiet. Let her eat. I didn't want to push, but I knew we had to talk. We had to figure out our next move. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with a napkin and looked me square in the eye. "He came back last night, didn't he?" There was no point in lying. "Someone did. Pulled up to the gate, sat there watching. When they saw I was armed, they turned tail." "It was him," she said with total certainty. "I know it was. He doesn't quit. He never has." "You want to tell me more about him?" I asked. So, I know what we're dealing with? She took a deep breath and looked out the window. The sunlight was starting to spill in, cutting across the living room floor. His name is Travis, she began. We met 5 years ago. I was working at a small grocery store back in Clinton. He was a long-haul trucker, always stopped in there. He was charming, polite, treated me right, not like the other guys who only wanted one thing. She paused. Her hands were shaking around the mug. We got married fast. Moved into a little place near the highway. It was good at first, but then he started drinking more. He'd get mean. Tell me I couldn't do anything right. The food was bad. The house was a mess. Told me I was useless. Her voice dropped an octave. The first time he hit me, he apologized. He cried, promised it would never happen again. I believed him. But it happened again, and again, and again. She brushed away a tear. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought it would get better. I thought he'd change, but it got worse. He claimed the baby wasn't his, said I'd found someone else, called me every name in the book. Once he shoved me so hard, I fell and hit my stomach. I was bleeding. I thought for sure I'd lose the baby. I felt that anger rising again, the kind of heat that makes a man want to take justice into his own hands. Did you go to the police? I asked. She laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound. I did, twice. They took a report, called him in. He made excuses, said I was lying, said I was crazy and making things up. The deputies believed him, told us it was just a domestic dispute, said I should go home and work things out with my family. She shook her head. The third time I went, the sergeant wouldn't even see me, said I was wasting their time. I looked at her bruised face, her exhausted eyes, the way she cradled her son as if someone might snatch him away at any second. After Gabe was born, he got even worse, she continued. The baby would cry at night. Travis would wake up drunk, screaming, said he'd throw the boy out the window if I didn't shut him up. I was terrified. I used to sleep with the baby hidden in the closet, just shaking. She looked at me. That's when I decided to run. I hid some money away, just a little, hardly anything. I was going to catch a bus, head to Oklahoma City, or maybe Dallas, anywhere far from him. But he found out. Tore my things apart, found the cash, and yesterday he said he was going to end the problem. Her voice trailed off. I sat there trying to process it all, trying to understand how a man could do that, how someone could hurt the very people they were supposed to protect. You got any family? I asked. Anyone who can help? She shook her head. Mama passed when I was young. Daddy drank himself to death too. I've got a sister, but she's out in Oregon. We haven't talked in years. I've got nobody. What about him? He got family. Yeah, brothers, but they're all cut from the same cloth. They back him up on everything, say I'm the one who's the problem. I stood up and went to the window. The ranch was quiet. Cooper was napping in the shade. The chickens were scratching in the yard. The cattle were grazing in the distance. Everything looked normal. But I knew better. Nothing had been normal since yesterday. You need to see a doctor, I said, turning back to her. You hit your head. There could be something wrong. I can't go to a hospital, she said, her voice rising in panic. He'll find out. He knows people everywhere. Someone will tell him. Then we'll take you somewhere else, a town further out. I can't leave here. I'm scared. I looked at her, at the raw fear in her eyes, at the way she gripped her child. All right, I said. Then you stay here, for now, until we figure out what to do next. You don't have to do this, she said, her voice trembling. You don't know me. You don't owe me a thing. I know. Then why? I looked at her, searching for the right words. There weren't any. Because I've lost people before, I said slowly. I lost my wife. I lost a son who never even got the chance to be born. And I did nothing. I couldn't do a damn thing. I just stood by and watched it happen. I took a breath. This time I can do something, so I'm doing it. She stared at me. The tears came back, but she didn't say a word. She just nodded. The baby started to cry, a soft whimper at first, then louder. He must be hungry, Molly said, picking him up. There's milk in the fridge. I can warm it up. I need to nurse him, but I'm so weak. I don't know if I have enough milk for him. Then we'll use the cow's milk to help out, and you're going to eat well. You need to get your strength back. She agreed. I warmed the milk and brought it to her. Molly tried to nurse him first. The baby latched for a bit, but grew restless. She topped him off with the milk I'd warmed. Gabe drank it all down, let out a burp, and drifted back to sleep. He's a strong one, I said, looking at the boy. Yeah, she said, a tiny smile touching her lips, the first smile I'd seen. He's a fighter. I spent the rest of the morning getting things ready. I cleared out a room for Molly and the baby, the room that was supposed to have been my son's. It had sat empty all these years. I changed the sheets, opened the window to let the air in, dusted the furniture. When Molly walked into the room, she stopped dead in the doorway. It's too much, she whispered. It's what I've got, I replied. Make yourself at home. She laid the baby in the old crib I'd kept in storage. Gabe settled in, sleeping peacefully. Thank you, she said, looking at me. Truly. Thank you. I just nodded. I didn't know what to say. I left the room and went back to the living area. I picked up my shotgun, stuffed some extra shells in my pocket, and walked out onto the porch. Cooper jumped up when he saw me, wagging his tail. Come on, Cooper. He followed. I sat on the top step, and he lay down beside me. I looked out at the road, at the red dust, at the empty horizon. Someone had come by last night, and they were coming back. I was sure of it. The question wasn't if, it was when. And what I was going to do when that moment came, because I knew one thing for certain, I wasn't letting that man anywhere near Molly or that boy. I wasn't going to let anyone else die on my watch. even if it meant facing things I hadn't faced in years. The fear, the violence, and the real chance that this could all end very badly. But it didn't matter. There are choices you make not because you want to, but because you have to. And this was one of them. The storm that came without warning. The next few days passed in a strange kind of tension. Molly stayed inside most of the time. She took care of Gabe. She helped with small chores, washed the dishes, swept the floors. Keeping busy, I reckoned. Trying not to think too much. I went back to the ranch work. I had a backlog of chores, fences to mend, cattle to move, pastures to check. But I did everything faster now. I never strayed too far. I was never gone for long, always with the shotgun. Always watching. Cooper turned into a proper guard dog. He stayed glued to the house. He barked at every unfamiliar noise. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see him standing on the porch, staring at the road, as if he knew we were waiting for something. Molly got better. The cut on her forehead started to heal. Her aches faded. She ate better, and her milk came back in. Gabe was nursing fine now. He cried less. The house felt different. It had the sound of people in it. The sound of life, a baby crying in the small hours, the clatter of pans in the kitchen, the creak of the old rocking chair I'd brought out of storage so Molly could rock the boy. It was strange, but it was good too. One afternoon, I was fixing the back fence when Molly appeared. She'd stepped out of the house for the first time since she'd arrived. She walked slow, the baby in her arms, looking around like she was seeing the world for the first time. "It's big," she said, coming closer. "Yeah," I replied, hammering a nail into the post. 1,000 acres, my father's legacy. "You work it all by yourself?" "Mostly. Sometimes I'll hire a hand when the work piles up, but usually it's just me." She stood quiet, looking over the pasture. The wind rippled through the grass. The sun was hot, but there were clouds stacking up on the horizon. "Must be lonely," she said. "It's what I know." She looked at me. "You never thought about marrying again?" The question caught me off guard. "No," I said, not looking at her. "After Sarah passed, I didn't want anyone else." "Why?" I stopped what I was doing, looked at the horizon. "Because it hurt too much to lose her, to lose the baby too. I don't care to feel that again." "But doesn't being alone hurt just as bad?" I looked at Molly. She had a different look about her, like she actually wanted to understand. "It does," I admitted, "but it's a pain I can control. The other kind, destroyed me." She nodded, as if she understood perfectly. "I thought I'd never trust anyone again either," she said, looking at her son. "After what Travis did. But you helped me and didn't ask for a thing. You didn't judge me, didn't demand anything." I didn't know what to say to that. "It's what anyone would have done," I muttered. "No, it isn't," she countered, shaking her head. "Most people look the other way, pretend they didn't see. Or they figure the person deserves what's coming to them." I went back to hammering the fence, not because it needed it, but because I didn't know how to handle that kind of talk. Molly stayed there a while longer, then headed back to the house. By the time I finished up and headed back, it was late afternoon. The sky had shifted. The clouds that had been far off were now covering half the horizon. Dark, heavy, mean-looking. "Gonna rain," I said, walking into the house. Molly was in the kitchen making rice. "That's good, isn't it, for the land?" "Yeah, but sometimes it comes down too hard." I looked out the window. The wind had picked up. The trees were bowing. Cooper came scurrying in, looking for cover. "Better shut everything up," I said. I locked the windows, bolted the doors, put away the tools I'd left in the yard. Night fell fast, and with it came the storm. It started with a wind, a fierce wind, the kind that rips shingles off roofs, knocks down fences and chokes up the creeks. Then came the thunder, dry, loud, making the whole house shudder, and then the rain. It wasn't just rain, it was a wall of water falling out of the sky. Gabe started to cry, spooked by the noise. Molly picked him up, trying to soothe him. I stayed in the living room, watching through a gap in the blinds. The rain was so heavy you couldn't see 15 feet in front of you. Then came the flash. A bolt of lightning hit nearby, very nearby. The crack was so loud Molly screamed. The house lights flickered, then they died, pitch black. "Jack!" Her voice came through the dark, terrified. "I'm right here. Take it easy." I grabbed the flashlight I kept on the bookshelf, switched it on. The weak beam cut through the room. "What happened?" Molly asked, the baby wailing in her arms. "Transformer must have blown, or a line went down. We'll be without power for a while." I lit a few candles and set them around the room. The house took on a yellow glow, shadows dancing from the flames. The rain didn't stop. It didn't let up. It only got heavier. After an hour, I started to worry. I went to the back door and cracked it open. The yard was already flooded. The creek that ran behind the house had turned into a river. The current was fast, roaring. "Is it flooding?" Molly asked from behind me. "Yeah, bad." I shut the door. "Are we safe in here?" I looked around. The house sat high, built on a rise. My father had picked the spot well, but I'd never seen a rain like this. "I reckon so," I answered, "but I'm going to keep watch." The storm raged all night. Molly lay on the sofa with Gabe. I stayed awake, pacing the house, checking doors, windows, leaks. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a different sound, a dull thud, coming from a distance. Cooper started barking, frantic, pacing back and forth. I opened the front door. The rain had slowed just enough to see a bit better, and then I saw it. The bridge, the only bridge connecting my ranch to the main road, had collapsed. The force of the flood had ripped out the old timber beams. Now there was nothing but a gaping hole with the raging creek rushing underneath. My stomach tied in knots. We were cut off, completely isolated. I went back inside. Marlene had woken up from the noise. "What happened?" she asked, sitting up. "The bridge is out." She looked at me, not understanding at first. Then, realization hit. And with it, the fear. Are we trapped here? For now, yeah. Until the water recedes. Until I can fix the crossing, or until someone from town notices and sends help. How long could that take? I don't know. Days, maybe a week. She clutched the baby to her chest. What if he comes? She asked, her voice fading. What if Vince shows up now and we can't get out? I had no answer for that. Because she was right. If that man came now, we had nowhere to run, no way to call for help. The storm had locked us in, but anyone who wanted to get in could find a way, because if the bridge was out for us, it was out for everyone. But that also meant whoever got in wouldn't be leaving easily. We're going to be okay, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I've got food, water, firewood. We'll hold out. What if he comes? I looked at the shotgun, leaning against the wall. I won't let him get anywhere near you. She looked at me. The fear in her eyes was real. But there was something else. Trust. Small, fragile. But it was there. I believe you, she said softly. Those words weighed heavier than anything I had ever carried in my life. The rain finally began to let up for real as the sun rose. The sky was still a dull grey, the ground was soaked, the farm looked like a war zone. I went out to survey the damage. The back fence was down, some shingles from the barn had blown off, the chicken coop was flooded. And the bridge was nothing but debris. Buddy followed me, sniffing at everything. The chickens came out slowly, wet and complaining. I went back to the house. Marlene had made coffee. The rich smell filled the kitchen. How is it out there? She asked. A mess, but nothing that can't be fixed, given time. I sat at the table, took the warm mug, drank slowly. We'll need to ration the food, I said. I don't know how long we'll be stuck here. Is there enough? Plenty. Rice, beans, pasta, some canned goods, flour, and the cattle if it comes to that. She nodded. I'll help however I can. I know you will. I kept staring out the window. The creek water was still high, muddy, carrying branches, leaves, pieces of fencing. And then I saw it. On the other side of the water, on the old dead-end road that led nowhere, a car was parked. How long it had been there, I didn't know. But it was there, watching, waiting. The silent siege. The car stayed there all day. Parked on the other side of the creek, too far for me to see who was inside, too close for me to pretend it wasn't there. Marlene noticed when she brought me some water in the middle of the afternoon. That car, she began, her voice trembling. I know. Is it him? No way to be sure, but it probably is. She went pale. She nearly dropped the glass. He's waiting, she said, more to herself than to me. He's waiting for us to leave, or waiting for the water to go down so he can get in. I didn't deny it, because that was exactly what I was thinking. Go back inside, I said. Stay away from the windows. Don't let him see you. She obeyed, but before going in, she looked at me. And you? Are you staying out here? I have to. Someone needs to keep watch. Jack, be careful. I nodded. She went inside, closing the door softly. I sat there on the porch, shotgun across my lap. Buddy lay at my feet, both of us staring in the same direction. The car didn't move until the sun began to dip below the horizon. Then slowly it backed up. It disappeared around the bend of the old road. But I knew it hadn't left. Not for real. It had just pulled back, to come back at night, or to make me think he'd given up. I went into the house when it got dark, locked everything up again. I put an oil lantern on the kitchen table. The dim light gave the house a somber feel. Marlene had made rice and fried eggs. Simple, but it was good. Did he leave? She asked while we ate. For now, but he'll be back. Yeah. She stopped eating, looked at her plate. Her fork was shaking in her hand. I didn't mean to bring this on you, she said quietly. All this mess, this danger, you don't deserve this. Nobody deserves what you've been through, I replied, and you didn't bring anything. I chose to help. But now you're in danger because of me. I've been in danger for a long time. I just didn't know it. She looked at me confused. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. It wasn't easy to talk about. I had never told anyone. After Sarah died, I died a little too, I began. I stopped really living. I just existed. Wake up, work, sleep, all over again the next day. I didn't feel anything, didn't want anything, didn't expect anything. I looked at her. You and Toby showed up and changed that. You made me feel again. Fear, anger, the urge to protect, the will to fight. It might not look like it, but that's a good thing. It's been a long time since I felt alive. Marlene had tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. We finished eating in silence. After we washed the dishes, Marlene went to the bedroom with Toby. I stayed in the living room. I sat in the same chair near the window, shotgun by my side. The night was long, too quiet. The kind of silence that makes you jumpy, that makes every little noise sound like a threat. Buddy was restless. He'd get up, lie down, walk to the door, come back, like he sensed something I couldn't. Around 2 in the morning he growled, low, but it was a growl. I stood up fast, grabbed the shotgun, went to the window. Outside, everything seemed normal. Dark, silent, just the sound of crickets and the wind. But Buddy wouldn't stop growling. The hair on his neck was standing up. His eyes were fixed on the road. I opened the door slowly, stepped out onto the porch. The moonlight illuminated part of the yard. I could see the shadows of the trees, the glint of the creek in the distance. And then I saw it, a light, small, flickering. On the other side of the creek, a flashlight. Someone was there, walking slowly, looking for something, or looking for a way across. I raised the shotgun, aimed it toward the light. "I know you're there," I shouted, my voice echoing in the night. "And I'm armed. Get out while you still can." The light stopped. It stayed still for a few seconds, then it went out, pitch black. I stood there, tense, waiting, finger on the trigger, heart racing. Minutes passed, nothing. Buddy stopped growling, but he stayed alert. I went back inside, locked the door. Marlene was standing in the hallway, clutching the baby. Her face was ashen. What was it? He's trying to cross the creek. Can he? Not today. The water is too high, too fast. But in a day or two, if it doesn't rain anymore, he'll make it. And then I looked at her, at the fear in her eyes, at the baby sleeping, oblivious to it all. Then I'm going to have to make a choice. What choice? Whether I wait for him to get here or whether I go to him first. She stared at me, as if trying to process what I was saying. You would do that. Go after him, if I have to. But it's dangerous. He's violent. He could... I know what he's capable of. I cut her off. But if I let him get here, near you too, it might be too late. Marlene didn't say anything. She just held her son tighter. Get some rest, I said more gently. We'll figure it out tomorrow. She hesitated, then went back to the room. I stayed in the living room, alone with my thoughts, and with the fear growing in my chest, because I knew the truth. I wasn't a hero, never had been. I didn't know how to fight. I didn't know what to do in a situation like this. I only knew that I wasn't going to let that man hurt Marlene and Toby. Even if it cost me everything. The next day dawned grey, overcast, but no rain. I went out early, checked the water level. It was still high, but you could tell it had dropped overnight. One more day, maybe two, and you'd be able to cross on foot. I went back to the house. Marlene was making coffee. Morning, I said, trying to sound normal. Morning. How's the water? Dropping. She didn't ask anything else. She didn't need to. We had coffee in silence. The baby nursed peacefully in her lap. I need to do a few things today, I said. Secure the house. See what I can use to defend us better. What do you need me to do? Stay with Toby. Don't leave the house. And if anything happens, if you hear a shot, a scream, anything, you take the boy and go to the back bedroom, lock the door, and don't come out until I call you. Understood? She nodded. The fear returned to her eyes. It's going to be okay, I said, more for myself than for her. I spent the whole morning prepping the house. I barred the windows facing the creek. I nailed boards over the ones without good locks. I checked every door, every entrance. I sorted the shotgun shells, counted them. I had 12. It wasn't much, but it had to be enough. I took the heavy machete I used for clearing brush. I honed the blade until it was razor sharp, left it near the back door. I filled jugs with water. Set aside food that didn't need cooking, cans, crackers, fruit. Everything we'd need if we got pinned down inside for days. By late afternoon, I was exhausted, but ready. I sat on the porch. Buddy came to lie by my side. I looked at the horizon, at the sky starting to darken, at the creek that kept receding. And then I heard it, a scream, coming from inside the house. Marlene. I bolted up, grabbed the shotgun, ran inside. Marlene! In here, in the bedroom. I sprinted down the hallway, burst into the room. She was standing there, baby in her arms, pointing at the window. Someone was there, she said, shaking, looking in. A man. He was looking right at me, at us. I went to the window, opened it, looked out. There was no one, but there were footprints, fresh tracks in the mud, coming up from the creek, leading right to the window and back. He had crossed. The creek had dropped enough, and he had come here. He had looked inside. He had seen Marlene and the baby. Now he knew they were here. And he knew I was protecting them. I closed the window, locked it. He's across, I said, looking at Marlene. What do we do? I took a deep breath. We get ready, because he's coming back. And next time, he's not just going to look. Marlene started to cry. She hugged her son, her body trembling. I put my hand on her shoulder. I won't let him get near you. I promised. Do you trust me? She looked at me, tears streaming down, but something shifted in her eyes. A decision. A surrender. Then I do. Then stay close to me. Do as I say, and we'll get through this. She nodded, but deep down I knew. The storm had just been the beginning. The real danger was arriving now, and there was no turning back. The longest night fell heavy. It wasn't just darkness. It was a feeling that something was wrong, that the air was thicker, harder to breathe. I lit every lantern I had, put one in every room. I wanted light. I wanted to see anything that moved. Marlene was sitting on the sofa with Toby asleep in her lap. She wasn't talking, just staring at the door, at the windows, like a cornered animal. Eat something, I said, bringing over bread and cheese. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You need to stay strong. Toby needs you strong. She took the bread, took a small bite, chewed slowly, swallowed with effort. I ate too, but I couldn't taste a thing. The house was silent, just the tick-tock of the old clock on the wall. And Buddy's heavy breathing as he lay by the door. Jack, Marlene said suddenly. Yeah? If something happens, if he manages to get in, do you promise you'll look after Toby? I looked at her. Her face was pure determination mixed with despair. Nothing is going to happen. But if it does, promise me. I promise, but it won't come to that, because you're going to be right here, alive, taking care of your son. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. The hours ticked by slowly. So slowly, 9 o'clock, 10, 11. I paced the house, checked the doors, the windows, peered out through every crack. Nothing, just darkness and the sounds of the night. Crickets, frogs, the wind in the trees. Midnight. Buddy raised his head, ears pricked. What is it, boy? I whispered. He looked at the back door, started growling low. I felt my whole body go taut. I grabbed the shotgun, crept toward the door, pressed my ear to the wood. The sound of footsteps, slow, careful. On the wet earth, someone was out there, circling the house. I looked at Marlene, signaled for her to be quiet, pointed to the back bedroom. She understood. She stood up slowly, baby in her arms, went down the hall, entered the room. closed the door without a sound. I was alone in the living room, just me, Buddy, and the shotgun. The footsteps continued, moving from one side to the other, testing. Then they stopped. Silence. My heart was beating so hard I was sure it could be heard. And then came the knock on the front door. 3 knocks, heavy, deliberate. Buddy barked, loud, furious. "Quiet, Buddy," I ordered. He stopped barking, but kept growling. Another knock, louder. "I know you're in there." The voice came from outside, thick, drunken, dangerous. "Open this door." I didn't answer. "Open the door," he screamed louder. "That bitch in there is my wife, and that kid is my son. They're mine." I stayed still, shotgun leveled at the door. "I know you've got a gun," the voice continued, calmer now, calculated. "But you won't shoot. You don't have the guts. I know your type. A good man. Wants to help. Wants to do the right thing." He laughed, a bitter laugh. "But you know what good men don't get? The world doesn't work like that. The world belongs to the ones who take, to the ones who aren't afraid. And I'm not afraid of anything." I heard the sound of metal scraping, as if he'd leaned something against the door. "I'll give you a chance," he said. "You open this door, give me my wife and my son, and I'll leave. You go back to your quiet little life. Everyone's happy." I waited. "But if you don't open it," his voice turned ice cold, "I'm going to kick this door down. I'm going to come in there, and I'm going to make you watch what I do to her before I kill you." I felt the rage rising, that rage that burns from the inside out. "You aren't going to lay a hand on her," I said, firm. "Never again." Silence on the other side. Then he laughed again. "Oh yeah? And who's gonna stop me? You? Me? You're old, alone, tired. You think you're gonna stop me? If I have to, yeah." I heard footsteps moving away from the door. I thought maybe he'd given up. But then came the sound. Shattering glass, the kitchen window. He'd smashed the window. From the kitchen. I ran, Buster leading the way. We burst into the kitchen. An arm was reaching through the broken pane, fumbling to unlock the latch from the inside. I raised the shotgun and leveled it. "Get your hand out of there, or I'll blow it off." The arm froze, but it didn't pull back. "You won't shoot," the voice said from the darkness. "You ain't no killer. Keep testing me and find out." Silence. The arm slowly withdrew. I heard footsteps crunching away again. I took a shaky breath, sweat stinging my eyes. I grabbed a piece of plywood and hammered it over the broken window. It wouldn't hold for long, but it was something. I turned to go back to the living room, and that's when I heard the scream. It came from the back bedroom. Molly. "Jim!" I dropped everything and sprinted down the hall. I kicked open the bedroom door. Molly was backed against the wall, Toby wailing in her arms. She was pointing at the window. It was wide open, and there he was. Standing on an old ladder I'd left leaning against the shed, peering in, grinning. "Hey, Molly," he said, his voice a thick, drunken drawl. "Miss me?" She didn't answer. She was just sobbing, her whole body shaking. He started to climb through the frame. I raised the shotgun. "Get out!" He looked at me and the grin vanished. "Or what? You gonna shoot? With her and the kid right there? What if you miss, old man? What if I dive and you catch them instead?" I knew he was right. It was too risky. "Put the gun down," he said, swinging one leg over the sill, "before someone gets hurt." My finger was on the trigger, slick with sweat. I was trembling. "Jim," Molly whispered behind me, "please." I couldn't tell if she was begging me to shoot or to stop. The man brought his other leg in. Now he was in the room. He was big, taller than me, broader. His shirt was filthy and he reeked of cheap whiskey. His eyes were bloodshot, wild. "Come on, Molly," he said, reaching out a hand. "Enough games." "We're going home." "I'm not going," she replied, her voice shaky but defiant. "Never again." He narrowed his eyes. "You think you have a choice?" "She does," I said, "and she's choosing to stay here." He looked at me with pure, unadulterated hate. "You don't know who you're messing with, old man, and you don't know how far I'll go to protect them." We stood there, locked in a stare down, the shotgun between us. Then he moved. Fast. Faster than I expected. He lunged for the barrel, trying to rip the gun from my hands. I held on tight. He pulled. I pulled back. We spun, slamming into the wall, then hit the floor hard. Molly screamed. The baby shrieked. Buster lunged in, sinking his teeth into the man's leg. He kicked the dog hard, and Buster went flying into the corner, yelping. The shotgun slipped from my grip, sliding across the floor. He scrambled for it. I threw myself on top of him, grabbing his arm. He landed a punch square in my face. I saw stars. My mouth filled with the coppery taste of blood, but I didn't let go. He hit me again, right in the eye. Pain exploded through my skull. I slumped sideways. He stood up, gasping for air, and grabbed the shotgun. He aimed it at my head. "It's over," he wheezed. I closed my eyes and waited for the blast, but instead I heard a different sound, the dull thud of metal hitting bone. I opened my eyes. Molly was standing behind him, clutching the heavy iron kerosene lamp. She had just swung it into the back of his head. Vince staggered. He dropped the shotgun and clutched his skull. You bitch!" He turned toward her, raising a hand to strike. I scrambled up and grabbed the gun off the floor. "Enough!" He froze. He looked at me, blood trickling down his neck from where the lamp had split his scalp. "Get out of my house," I ordered, the shotgun steady now. "Get out and never come back." "Or what?" "Or I'll shoot, and this time I won't miss." "And there won't be a soul alive to believe your story. Everyone in this county knows what you are. They'll call it self-defense and buy me a drink for it." He looked at me, then at Molly, then at the baby crying in the corner. "This isn't over," he said lowly. "For you it is." He spat on the floor, turned and climbed back out the window. I watched him go down the ladder and kept the gun on him until he vanished into the dark. Only then did I lower the weapon. My legs were like jelly. My whole body was shaking. Molly ran to me, throwing her arms around my neck. She sobbed into my shoulder. "Thank you," she choked out. "Thank you, thank you." I held her, letting her cry. Toby was still fussing in the corner. Buster was whimpering, hurt but alive. The house was a wreck, but we had survived for now, because I knew men like him. They always come back, and next time it would be worse. The decision that changes everything. The rest of the night was a blur of pain and adrenaline. I locked every door and window again. I nailed boards over the broken ones and shoved heavy furniture against the entries. I did everything I could to turn the house into a fortress. Molly tended to Toby. She nursed him and rocked him, singing softly to calm the boy. Buster stayed in the corner, licking a bruised paw. The kick had been brutal, but he was tough. He'd be okay. I was a mess, too. My eye was swollen shut, my lip was split, and my ribs throbbed every time I took a breath. Probably cracked, but it didn't matter. We were still breathing. When the sun began to peek over the horizon, I was still awake, sitting in my chair with the shotgun across my lap. Molly came out of the bedroom. She'd finally gotten the baby to sleep. Her eyes were red and puffy. "You didn't sleep," she said, coming closer. "Couldn't." She looked at my face, the black eye, the blood. "We need to clean that up." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." She went to the kitchen, dampened a cloth with cold water, and came back. She started dabbing the dried blood from my face. It stung, but I let her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for all of this. I told you it's not your fault." "It is. I brought him here. I put you in the line of fire." "Molly," I said, taking her hand to stop her, "look at me." She did. "You didn't do anything wrong. You tried to protect your son. That's what a mother does." Her eyes filled up again. "But what now? He'll come back. You said it yourself." I took a deep breath, wincing at the pain in my side. "We have to leave." "How?" "The bridge is out. The creek is too high. There's an old logging road. It's a long way around, adds miles to the trip, but it eventually hits the main highway. From there we get to town. We go to the sheriff. We report him, for real this time. The police won't believe me. I've tried. They'll believe it when they see the state of you, the bruises, the baby." "And when I tell them what he did here, they'll have to." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. "And if they don't?" "Then we keep going. Another state. Somewhere he can't find you." "You'd do that? You'd walk away from your farm? Your life?" I looked around the old house, at the furniture that held a lifetime of memories, at the walls I'd painted with Celia. "This farm used to be my life," I said. "But for a long time now it's just been an empty shell, a place where I came to wither away." Without feeling, without really living. I looked back at her. "You and Toby reminded me what it's like to be alive, to have something worth protecting. I'm not throwing that away." Molly started crying again, but it was different this time. It wasn't despair. "No one's ever done that for me," she whispered. "No one ever protected me. No one ever cared. Someone does now." She leaned in and kissed me, quick, soft, on the corner of my mouth that wasn't bruised. Then she pulled away, blushing hard. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have—" "It's all right," I said, feeling a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. We sat there, not quite knowing what to say next. That's when we heard it. An engine, coming up the drive. My whole body went rigid. "He's back," Molly whispered, terror returning to her eyes. I went to the window and peered through a gap in the boards. But it wasn't his truck. It was an old, beat-up white van with rust spots on the wheel wells. On the side, faded blue letters read, "U.S. Mail." The mailman. I never thought I'd be so happy to see a mailman. He pulled up in front of the house and hopped out. A short man, maybe in his 60s, with a sweat-stained cap and a leather bag slung over his shoulder. "Jim," he hollered. "You in there?" I opened the door slowly, shotgun still in hand. "I'm here, Nate." Nate looked at the shotgun, then at my battered face. He frowned. "What in the hell happened to you, Jim?" "Had some trouble, Nate." "What kind of trouble?" I hesitated. I didn't know if I should drag him into this. But then Molly appeared behind me with Toby. The bruises on her face were clear as day in the morning light. Nate looked at her, then at the baby, then back at me. "Jim, you in deep?" "Yeah." "Talk to me." I took a breath. "She's running from a violent husband. He left her and the baby for dead in the pasture. I found them. He tracked them here." "Tried to break in last night." Nate turned pale. "Good Lord. We need help. We need to get out of here. Get to the sheriff's office. The bridge is out from the storm, Jim. You can't get your truck across." "I know. That's why I need you to take her and the baby in the van. Use the old logging road. What about you?" "I'm staying to hold the line. I can't leave the place wide open with him lurking around." "Jim, that's suicide. He'll kill you." "Maybe, but it has to be done." Molly grabbed my arm. "No, you aren't staying here alone. If you stay, I stay." "Molly, don't you argue with me. We're in this together. We leave together, or we don't leave at all." I looked at her, at that iron-willed look in her eyes. Nate cleared his throat. "Listen, I got a better idea. Everyone piles in with me. I'll drive you straight to the county seat. We go to the station. We get protection. Then the deputies can come back here and haul that bastard to jail." "And if he comes here while I'm gone, if he burns it down?" "Jim, with all due respect, this is just stuff. House, land, cattle, none of it's worth a life. Not yours." His words hit home. He was right. I'd spent years guarding a grave, guarding the past. But what mattered was right in front of me, Molly, Toby, a chance at a future. "All right," I finally said. "We go, all of us." Molly let out a breath of pure relief. "We have to move now," I said, "before he circles back." Let me grab a few things, Molly said, darting into the bedroom. I went to my room. I grabbed an old rucksack, stuffed in some clothes, my papers, and the emergency cash I kept in an old coffee tin. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Celia's wedding band was in the nightstand drawer in a small velvet box. I took it out. "Forgive me," I whispered, "but I have to move on." I put the ring in my pocket, for memory, for respect, but I didn't put it on. I went back to the living room. Molly was ready with a small bag of baby supplies. "Let's go," Nate said, already at the door. We stepped out. I locked the front door. I didn't know if I'd ever see the inside of that house again. I didn't care. We climbed into the mail van. I took the passenger seat. Molly and Toby got in the back. Buster started barking when he realized we were leaving. "Wait," I said. I hopped out and whistled. "Come on, boy, you too." Buster jumped into the back and curled up at Molly's feet. Nate turned the key. The engine groaned, coughed, and finally turned over. We started down the drive. The old logging road was a mess. Potholes, mud, fallen branches. I looked in the side mirror at the house fading into the distance, the farm that had been my whole world, and I felt something strange. It wasn't sadness, it was relief, like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. We drove for 30 minutes, the van rattling and bouncing. Toby was asleep in Molly's arms. Then we saw it, right in the middle of the road, blocking our path. His truck, parked sideways, cutting us off. And there he was, standing beside it, holding a shotgun, the same one I'd left in the house. He'd circled back, gone inside, and taken my weapon. Now he was waiting. Nate slammed on the brakes. The van skidded to a halt. "Oh, God," Nate whispered. Molly clutched the baby tighter. The terror was back. The man started walking toward us, slow and steady, the shotgun leveled at the windshield. "End of the line," he shouted. "Get out, all of you." I looked at Nate. "Reverse, now." "I can't. He'll shoot through the glass." "Then floor it. Ram the truck." "This van won't make it through, Jim. It'll stall out." I looked in the mirror. Behind us was empty road. In front of us he was closing the gap. There was no way out. We were cornered, and he knew it. The dawn of a new lifetime seemed to freeze. The old van idled, shivering. The man kept coming, the shotgun raised. Molly was trembling so hard I could hear her teeth chattering. Nate's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I had to think. I had to find a way. But there was nothing. He stopped about 30 feet away. "I warned you," he said, his voice ragged, still slurred with booze. "I told you it wasn't over, but you didn't listen." "Vince," Molly called out, her voice thin and weak through the window. "Please, just let us go. You don't have to do this." He laughed, that jagged, bitter laugh. "Let you go? Where? So you can spread lies, tell people I'm a monster, destroy me? I won't say anything. I just want to leave, start over, away from here, away from you. You aren't going anywhere. You're my wife. That kid is my son. And you're coming back with me. Now." "No," she said, her voice finding its edge. "Never again." His face contorted with rage. "Then you die here, all of you." He aimed the shotgun at the van. My body moved before my mind could. I threw the door open and stepped out. "Jim, no!" Molly screamed, but I was already on the gravel, standing between him and the van. "Get out of the way, old man," he ordered. "No, I'll shoot." "Then shoot! But you aren't getting to her without going through me first." He narrowed his eyes, the gun shaking in his hands. "You think you're a hero? You think you're saving her? You're nothing, just a pathetic old man who couldn't even save his own wife." The words stung. They cut deep because they were true. I hadn't saved Celia. I hadn't saved my son. But this time was different. This time I had a choice. "You're right," I said, taking a step toward him. "I'm no hero. I'm just an old man. Tired. A man who lost everything he ever loved." I took another step. "But you know what that means? It means I have nothing left to lose, nothing. You can kill me. You can pull that trigger. But before I go down, I'm going to get to you, and I'm going to take you with me. And the VW bus is going to pass, and they're going to get away. One more step. So, it's up to you. You can kill an old man who's worth nothing and lose her forever, or you can put that gun down. Get out of the way, and let life move on." I was close now, about 15 feet away. The shotgun was pointed straight at my chest. He was sweating, his eyes were bloodshot, his hand was shaking even harder. "You don't understand," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper now. "Broken. I can't live without her. She's all I have. If she leaves, I'm nothing." And that's when I saw it. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just violence. It was the desperation of a man who knew he was lost, who had destroyed everything with his own hands and didn't know how to fix it. "You're wrong," I said, my voice softer now. "You can live without her. You can be better. You can choose a different path." "I can't." "Yes, you can. But first, you have to let her go. Let her be happy. Let her live without fear." He shook his head, tears starting to stream down his face. "I don't know how." "By putting that gun down and stepping aside." We stood there, the two of us, locked in each other's gaze. Seconds felt like hours. And then, slowly, he began to lower the shotgun. His hands were trembling, his face contorted in pain. He lowered it all the way to the ground. He dropped the gun in the dirt and fell to his knees. He started to cry, loud, uncontrollable sobs. "I'm so sorry," he choked out between gasps. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I picked the shotgun up from the ground. I engaged the safety, took out the shells and tossed them far into the brush. I walked over to the pickup truck, grabbed the keys from the ignition, and threw them into the tall grass. I went back to the bus. "Let's go," I said, climbing in. Nate hit the gas. The VW bus swerved around the pickup along the shoulder of the road and passed. I looked in the side mirror. The man was still there on his knees in the middle of the road, crying, alone, small. Marlene was watching too, tears streaming down her face. "It's over," I whispered. "It's really over." She leaned her head on my shoulder and cried quietly, relieved. Raphael was sleeping peacefully, oblivious to it all. We drove for another hour. The old dirt road turned into blacktop. The blacktop led to the highway, and the highway led to the city. Lawton, small but big enough, Nate took us straight to the sheriff's station. We went in and told them everything. We showed them the bruises, the documents, the evidence. The sheriff was a middle-aged man, serious but fair. He listened to it all, took notes, and asked questions. "I'll send a cruiser out to pick him up," he said when we finished. "What about you folks? Do you have a place to stay?" I looked at Marlene. She looked at me. "Not for now," I replied. The sheriff took a piece of paper and scribbled an address. "This is a shelter for women in domestic violence situations. They help out, provide food, clothes, a place to sleep. They'll even help find work if needed." Marlene took the paper, looked at it and nodded. "Thank you." We left the station. The sun was high now, strong, but it wasn't that burning sun anymore. It was a sun that warmed, that illuminated. Nate said his goodbyes. "You're going to be okay," he said, smiling. "I'm sure of it." "Thank you, Nate, for everything." "No need to thank me. We do what we can, right? And when we can, we do it all." He got into the bus, waved and drove off. We stood there, me, Marlene, Raphael and Duke. In the middle of the sidewalk, with one backpack, one grocery bag, and an uncertain future ahead. "What now?" Marlene asked. I looked at her, at the baby, at the dog. "Now, we start over." We went to the shelter. It was a large, old house, but well kept, with a garden out front and a blue gate. We knocked. A woman opened it, about 50 years old, short hair, a kind smile. "Can I help you?" Marlene showed her the paper. "The sheriff sent us here." The woman looked at the paper, then at us, at the baby, at the bruises. "Come in," she said, opening the gate. "Welcome." We went inside. Marlene was taken to a room. I stayed in the living room. I wasn't sure if I could stay since it was a women's shelter, but the woman came back. "You're Jack, right?" "I am." "Marlene told me what you did, how you protected her and the baby." "I only did what was right." "Not everyone does. You know that." I nodded. "Did you have a place to stay?" she asked. "No, but I'll figure something out." "You don't have to. There's a small cottage out back. It used to belong to the groundskeeper who worked here. He retired. It's empty. You can stay there if you like." I looked at her, surprised. "Really? Really? Marlene is going to need support, someone she trusts, and from the looks of it, she trusts you." I felt a tightness in my chest. "I'll take it, thank you." "And there's more." We always need help around here. Small repairs, maintenance, things a man who's worked a ranch his whole life knows how to do. It doesn't pay much, but it pays enough. I'll take it, I repeated, this time with a smile. The following days were strange but good. Marlene stayed in the shelter. She began to recover, to heal, inside and out. Raphael grew, gained weight, smiled more. I fixed whatever needed fixing. I painted walls, replaced roof shingles, fixed leaky faucets. I did what I knew how to do. At night we would sit in the garden, me, Marlene and the baby, talking, planning, dreaming. "What are you going to do?" I asked one night. "When all of this passes?" She went quiet, looking up at the sky. "I don't know. I never thought about it. I never had the freedom to think." "You do now?" She smiled. "I think I want to work, save some money, have my own place, raise my son in peace, far away from everything I went through." "You'll get there." "And you, are you going back to the ranch?" The question caught me off guard. I had thought about it, a lot, every day. The ranch was my life, my history, my past. But it was also loneliness, emptiness, stored up pain. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe it's time to start something else." "Like what?" I looked at her, at the baby in her lap, at the new life forming right there in front of me. "Maybe it's time to build something new, with other people." With, with a family. She looked at me, her eyes shining. "Would you want that? After everything you've been through?" I spent a long time being afraid to feel again, afraid to lose again. But I've learned something these past few days. "What?" "That the pain of losing is great, but the pain of never having tried is even greater." Marlene held my hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for saving me, for believing in me, for showing me there are still good men in the world." "And thank you for reminding me that life is still worth living." We stayed there holding hands, looking at the stars. Raphael slept peacefully. Duke was snoring at our feet. And for the first time in 7 years I felt peace, real peace. Not the peace of silence and solitude, but the peace of someone who had found a place, a purpose, a reason. Weeks later, the news came. Darrell had been arrested, convicted. He was going to spend years in prison. Marlene cried when she heard. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of freedom, of knowing she could walk down the street without fear, sleep without jumping at every sound, live without looking over her shoulder. "It's over," she said, hugging me. "It's really over now." I hugged her back, tight and secure. "It's over," I repeated, "and now something else begins." "What?" "Life. Our life." She pulled back a little and looked into my eyes. "Our life. If you want it to be." "I do." We kissed. Slowly, gently, like two people who had suffered too much and had finally found a bit of light. Months passed. Marlene got a job at a clothing store downtown. She started saving money, dreaming of a home of her own. I stayed at the shelter, helping out, working. But I also started thinking about the future. I sold part of the ranch, the part that held no meaning. I kept the other part, the part with the house, the memories, the past. I didn't want to erase it. I just wanted to move forward. With the money from the sale, I bought a small house in town, 3 bedrooms, a backyard, close to the school. It's for us, I told Marlene, showing her the house. If you want, you, me, and Raphael. She looked at the house, then at me. Are you sure? I'm sure, completely. But what about the past? What about Celia? The past will always be with me. Celia will always be in my heart. But that doesn't mean I can't have a future. It doesn't mean I can't love again. Do you love me? The question was direct, no beating around the bush. I do, I answered. I love you, and I love Raphael, and I want to build a life with you, if you'll let me. She started to cry, but they were tears of joy. I love you too, she said. I love you for everything you've done, for everything you are, for showing me that it's still possible to start over. We moved in a week later. The house was simple, but it was ours. I painted the rooms, Marlene chose the colors. Blue for Raphael, yellow for the living room, white for our bedroom. Duke got a little doghouse in the backyard, but he slept inside anyway, on the rug in the living room. Raphael was taking his first steps, babbling his first words. Dada was the first thing he said, looking at me. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Celia died. But these were different tears. They were tears of gratitude, of a new beginning, of life. A year later, we got married. A simple ceremony at the courthouse. Just me, her, Raphael, the director of the shelter, and Nate as witnesses. No big party, no luxury, just love. Real love. The kind that is born from pain, grows through suffering, and strengthens through overcoming. That night, lying in bed, Marlene rested her head on my chest. Thank you, she said, for saving me. You saved me too, I replied. We saved each other. How did we get here? She asked. How did all of this happen? I thought about the question. But the storm that broke, the bridge that collapsed, the man who tried to destroy us. But I also thought about the chance meeting, the care, the bond that formed. I think life has a way of bringing together the people who need to be together, I said. Sometimes in a painful way, sometimes a scary way, but always with a purpose. What was our purpose? To heal each other. To save each other, to teach each other that it's still worth believing. She went quiet, then whispered, I believe in you, in us, in tomorrow. I do too. I closed my eyes, with her in my arms, with the sound of Raphael's breathing in the next room, with Duke snoring in the living room. And for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly, no nightmares, no pain, just peace, 10 years later. I was in the backyard fixing the fence that Raphael had knocked down playing ball. He was 11 now, tall, strong, healthy, full of life. Sorry, Dad, he said, helping me hold the wood. It's okay, son. Fences can be fixed. What matters is that you're having fun. Marlene appeared at the door, her belly large, 7 months pregnant. A girl. We were going to call her Celia, in honor, in memory, in love. "Are you two coming in for lunch or staying out there all day?" she asked, smiling. "We're coming," I replied. Raphael ran inside, Duke right behind him, old now, slower, but still faithful. I stood there for a moment looking at the house, at my family, at the life I had built. I remembered the ranch, the silence, the solitude. I remembered the day I found Marlene and Raphael, the fear, the danger, the struggle. And I remembered the choices we made, the choices that brought us here. It wasn't easy, it wasn't fast, but it was real, and it was worth it. Because sometimes life takes everything from us, but sometimes, when we least expect it, it gives back. In a different way, in a better way, in a way that teaches us that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just transforms and finds other places to bloom. I went into the house, the smell of home-cooked food filling the air. Marlene put her hand on her belly and smiled. She kicked. I placed my hand over hers. I felt it. Life. Pulsing. Growing. Continuing. "She's going to be strong," Marlene said. "Just like us." "She will be," I agreed. "Because we're going to teach her how." We sat at the table, me, Marlene, Raphael, and Duke lying at our feet. We held hands and gave thanks for the food, for the house, for the family, for life, and mostly for the encounters. Those meetings that change everything, that save, that heal, that show that even in the middle of the strongest storm, the darkest night, the most real danger, there is always a light. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a choice. Sometimes it's just the courage to reach out your hand and believe it's worth trying again. It's always worth trying again. Because that's what makes us human. Not perfection, not the absence of pain, but the capacity, even after everything, to still choose love, to still choose hope, to still choose to live. And that's what I chose. That's what we chose. Together. 15 years later. The old pickup truck rattled as I pulled onto the red clay road. The same dirt I'd known forever. The same dust that kicked up and stuck to your skin. The same dry smell of the plains that filled my lungs. I hadn't been here in 5 years. 5 years since the last time I'd stepped foot on the ranch where I was born, where I grew up, where I lost everything, and where, in a way, I found it all again. Beside me, Marlene looked out the window. Her hair was grayer now, pulled back in a simple ponytail. The wrinkles around her eyes marked the years, but they also marked the smiles. The victories, the life lived. In the back seat, Raphael was on his phone, 26 years old now. A grown man, a graduate in agronomy, working at a co-op in Oklahoma City. Engaged to a good girl, a school teacher he'd met in college. And beside him, Celia. 15 years old, long hair, curious eyes, always asking questions about everything. She looked like her mother. But there was something of the other Celia in her too. A quiet strength, a natural kindness. "Dad, why are we coming here?" Celia asked, looking up from her book. I looked in the rearview mirror into her eyes. "Because there's something I need to show you all. Something important." "What?" "You'll see." The old gate appeared ahead. I stopped the truck and got out. Rust had taken over the hinges. It took some effort to pull it open, but I did. I got back in. We drove through. The road leading to the house was narrower now. The brush had closed in from the sides, nature reclaiming its space, but the house was still there, standing, resisting, like it always had. I'd hired someone to look after it over the years, a distant cousin who lived in the area. He'd stop by once a month, mow the weeds, check if everything was okay. He got paid for it. The house wasn't abandoned, but it was empty of people, full of memories. I stopped in front and cut the engine. Everyone got out in silence. Raphael looked around. He'd been here a few times as a child and remembered bits and pieces, but not everything. Celia had never been. To her, this was all new, different. "Is this where you used to live?" she asked, staring at the house. "Yeah," I said, "for a lot of years." "It's big." "Yeah, it is. Too big for just one person." Marlene reached for my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. It was a simple gesture, but it said everything. "I'm here, with you. I always will be." I walked up to the door. The key was exactly where it had always been, tucked under a cracked clay flower pot sitting on the porch. I turned the lock, and that familiar creak of the hinges echoed through the silence. The scent of an old house hit me. It wasn't a bad smell, it was just aged, like opening a trunk full of memories. We stepped inside. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. The furniture was draped in white dust sheets. The clock on the wall had long since stopped. The kettle was still sitting on the stove. Gabe headed toward the kitchen, while little Celia went straight to the living room window. Marlene stayed by my side. "How are you doing?" she asked softly. "I'm okay. Good, I think." "Are you sure?" "Yeah. I made my peace with this place a long time ago." She smiled and kissed my cheek. "I'm going to go check on the kids." I stood alone in the living room, looking around. There was the chair where I used to sit with my shotgun across my lap. The window where I used to watch the road. The sofa where Marlene had slept that very first night. It was all still there, silent witnesses to a story that changed everything. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Gabe. "Dad?" "Yes, son?" "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." He hesitated, looking for the right words. Do you still think about her? Your first wife?" The question didn't catch me off guard. I knew he'd ask eventually. "I do," I answered honestly. "Not every day." "But I do. She was important. She was part of my life." "Does it make you sad?" "Sometimes, but it's not a bad kind of sadness. It's the kind that reminds me that I loved, that I lived, that I lost, and that I survived." Gabe nodded, lost in thought. "I never really thanked you," he said after a moment. "For what?" "For saving us, me and Mom. If it hadn't been for you—" His voice trailed off. I put my hand on his shoulder. You don't need to thank me, Gabe. I did what any decent man would do. But it wasn't just any man, it was you. And because of that, I had a life, a family, a real father. I felt a lump form in my throat. You've been my son since the first day I saw you, Gabe. It didn't take a piece of paper. It didn't take blood. You were mine, and you always will be. He hugged me then, a strong man-to-man embrace, and I held him back. When we pulled away, he wiped his eyes quickly, trying to hide it. You're a good man, Dad. I've tried to be. I didn't always get it right, but I tried. He smiled. You did better than you think. We walked out of the house and toward the back pasture, the place where it all began. The spot where I'd found Marlene and Gabe, circled by vultures clinging to life. The landscape had shifted, the grass was taller, and a few new trees had taken root. But the soul of the place was the same. Little Celia ran ahead of us, free and happy. "It's beautiful here," she shouted, laughing. "It is," I called back, "very beautiful." Marlene came close and took my arm. "Do you remember?" "Every second of it." "Me too. I remember the fear, the certainty that I was going to die, that Gabe was going to die. And then you appeared." She looked up at me. "You were my angel. You saved me." "You saved me too, just as much as I saved you." "How?" "By giving me a reason to live again, to feel, to believe that it was worth trying one more time." We stood there staring out at the horizon, the wide open sky, and the white clouds drifting slowly by. "Why did you want to come here today?" Marlene asked. "After all this time?" I took a deep breath. "Because I need to do something. Something I've been putting off for years." "What's that?" "Closing one chapter and starting a new one." We headed back to the house as the sun began to dip. I fired up the old grill. The rusted iron still worked just fine. Gabe helped me with the steaks, little Celia set the table, and Marlene fixed a salad and some corn, just like the old days, like a family. We ate on the porch, talking and laughing, sharing stories. Celia asked what life on the ranch used to be like, how early I had to wake up, how I took care of the cattle alone, how quiet it was. "Must have been lonely," she said. "It was. Very much so." "Didn't it make you sad?" "It did. But I didn't realize I was sad back then. I thought it was just normal." That this was how life was supposed to be. "So what changed?" I looked at Marlene, then at Gabe. "You did. You three changed everything." Celia smiled, that bright smile of hers that could light up a room. "I like this story, the story of how you all met. It's sad, but it's beautiful too." "It is," I agreed, "because it shows that even in the worst times, something good can grow." "Do you think things happen for a reason?" she asked. "Like fate?" I thought about it. I think we make choices. And those choices lead us places, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I don't know if it's fate, but I know that when you choose to do the right thing, things have a way of getting better. And did you always choose the right thing? No, far from it. I've made plenty of mistakes. I've hurt people without meaning to. I've been a coward at times. But I tried to learn. I tried to be better. And did you? Get better? I think so. With a little help. With love. And with time. Night fell. We lit the kerosene lanterns, and the stars came out, millions of them blazing in a sky untainted by city lights. Celia curled up in her mother's lap. Gabe sat on the porch steps. I leaned back in my rocking chair. A soft breeze drifted through, carrying the scent of the high plains and the sound of the first crickets. "Dad," Gabe said, breaking the silence, "are you going to move back here?" "No." "Why not? It's yours. It's your land." "It is, but it's not my place anymore." "Then what are you going to do with all this?" I took a breath, thinking of the decision I'd made months ago, the real reason we had come. "I'm going to turn this place into something else." "Like what?" "A sanctuary. For women. For children. For anyone running from violence, or abuse, or danger." They all went quiet, staring at me. "Like that shelter where we stayed," Marlene said softly. "Just like it. But bigger. With more room, more resources. A place where people can heal." "Where they can learn how to live again without being afraid." "That's incredible, Dad," Gabe said. "But it'll cost a fortune." "It will. But I've got it. The money from the cattle, the land I've sold over the years, it's all been sitting there. I don't need much. You two are grown. You have your own lives. This place can help people who really need it." Marlene started to cry, but they were good tears, tears of pride. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Absolutely. This house saved you once." "Now it's going to save as many people as it can. How will it work?" "I've already talked to the director of the shelter in town. She's going to help me coordinate. We'll renovate the house, add on to it, build more bedrooms, a bigger kitchen, a playground for the kids. And whoever needs a place, they come. They stay as long as they need to until they can get back on their feet." "What are you going to call it?" Celia asked. I smiled. "Celia's Haven." "In honor of the two most important women in my life." Marlene stood up, walked over to me, and kissed me deeply. "Thank you," she whispered, "for doing this, for turning pain into hope. It's the least I can do, after everything life has given me." We spent the night there, sleeping in the old rooms, each of us in our own space, but together, as a family. The next morning before we left, I walked out to the small family plot behind the ranch. It was just a simple wooden cross, marking the spot where I had buried Celia's ashes and the son who never drew a breath. It wasn't an official cemetery, but I'd done it anyway. I wanted them close. I wanted them in the land we loved. I knelt in front of the cross. I'd come out here alone, asking for a few minutes. "Hey, Celia," I said softly. "It's been a while. Sorry about that. Life got busy, but it's good. It's really good." I looked at the name carved into the wood. I wanted to tell you that. I moved on. I met someone. I got married again. I have a daughter now. I named her after you. I hope you don't mind. I hope you understand." The wind rustled the leaves of the nearby cottonwoods. "I loved you. So much. And I always will. You were my first family, my first life. But I had to live again. I couldn't stay trapped here, trapped in the past." I wiped away a stray tear. "I hope you're proud of the man I became, of the choices I made." I tried to honor your memory. I tried to be better, for you, for our son, for everyone who came after. I stayed there for a while longer in the silence, just feeling the wind, the sun, and the peace. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything we had, for everything you taught me. I'll never forget. Never." I stood up and placed my hand on the cross one last time. "Rest in peace, my love. You and our boy. Rest easy knowing that I'm okay, that I lived, that I loved again." I turned and walked back to the house. Marlene was waiting on the porch. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I am now." She smiled and took my hand. "Ready to go home?" "Ready." We climbed into the truck. Gabe was driving this time, with little Celia humming to herself in the back seat. I looked in the side mirror as the house faded into the distance, the ranch that had been my life, my prison, and my salvation, and I felt peace, real peace. The kind that comes from making friends with your past and embracing your future, 6 months later. The grand opening of Celia's Haven was on a Saturday morning. People came from all over, from the nearby town, from Abilene, even from Fort Worth. People who had heard the story, people who wanted to help, people who believed. The house had been transformed, freshly painted in white and yellow. Expanded with 6 large bedrooms, a commercial-grade kitchen, a cozy living room, and a playground for the little ones. Marlene had helped plan the garden. At the entrance sat a wooden sign, "Celia's Haven, where hope begins again." We had a simple ceremony. A local preacher said a few words, and the director of the city shelter spoke. A few women who had survived their own dark times shared their stories. Then it was my turn. I told them my story. I told them about Celia, my first wife. About the pain of losing everything and the years of silence. I told them about the day I found Marlene and Gabe, about the fear, the fight, and the change. "This house taught me something," I said, looking at the crowd. "It taught me that you can lose everything. You can suffer. You can think there's no way out, but there is always a chance. There is always someone willing to reach out a hand, and there is always a strength inside you to start over." I looked at Marlene in the audience. She was smiling, her eyes glistening. "This place isn't just about me. It's not just about my story. It's about every story, every person who needs a safe harbor, a time to heal, a chance to rebuild." I paused, looking at the walls that had seen so much, at the pasture where it all began, at the wide Texas sky. May this place be a light for those in the dark. May it be peace for those in turmoil. May it be a home for those who are lost. And let it be proof that it is always worth believing. Always. People cheered and some cried. After the ceremony, they toured the house, the kitchen, the rooms. They met the staff, the counsellors, the social workers, the cooks. Everything was ready to welcome the first family the following week. A 32-year-old woman with 3 kids, fleeing a violent home in Lubbock with nowhere else to turn. Now, she had a place. At the end of the day, when everyone had left, I sat on the porch alone for a moment. Right where I used to sit with that shotgun. But everything was different now. No gun, no fear, no loneliness, just purpose. Duke had passed away 2 years ago. Old age. He just went to sleep and didn't wake up. We buried him out back, near the fence where he used to lie in the sun. But other dogs had found their way to us, 2 mutts that had shown up at our house in town, skinny, scared things. We fed them, and they stayed. One of them was with me now, lying at my feet. A golden brown dog, just like Duke. We named him Thunder in honor of the old horse that carried me to Marlene that day. "What do you think, boy?" I asked, scratching behind his ears. "Is it gonna work?" He looked up at me and wagged his tail as if to say, "Yeah, it's gonna be just fine." I heard a car pull up. It was Marlene, coming back with a few things she'd forgotten. She stepped out, walked up to the porch and sat beside me. "Tired?" she asked. "A little, but the good kind of tired." "It was a beautiful day, Jack." It was. We sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the evening, the crickets, the breeze. "Jack," she said after a while. "Yeah? Thank you." "For what?" "Everything. For saving me, for loving my son, for giving me a family, for building this place, for being the man you are." I took her hand. "I'm the one who should thank you, for pulling me out of the dark, for showing me I could still live, for giving me a reason to get up in the morning." She rested her head on my shoulder. "We make a good team. The best." We stayed there until the sun was gone, until the stars filled the sky. And then we went home, to our house in town, where Gabe and his fiancée were waiting for dinner, where Celia was probably doing her homework, and where life happened every single day. But a piece of me stayed there, at the ranch, at the haven, in the place where everything changed. 3 years later, Celia's haven had become a staple in the region. It had helped over 50 families already, women, children, and even a few men who had been victims of violence and had nowhere else to go. The facility had grown through donations, volunteers, and people who believed in the mission. It now had 10 bedrooms, a small schoolhouse for the kids, a community garden, and workshops for crafts and literacy. It was more than a shelter. It was a community. I went there twice a month. I helped with repairs, talked to the residents, and shared my story. Every time I went, I saw lives transforming. I saw women who arrived broken leave strong, finding jobs and rebuilding their self-esteem. I saw kids who arrived terrified become confident, playing and dreaming again. I saw people who thought it was over discover that it was just the beginning. And every time I saw it, I remembered. I remembered me. I remembered Marlene. I remembered that change is always possible. One afternoon, a young woman approached me at the Haven. She was maybe 25, with a little girl in her arms. "Are you Jack?" she asked timidly. "I am. I just wanted to say thank you." "What for?" "I stayed here 2 years ago. My husband had kicked me out. I was pregnant, no money, no hope. I came here thinking my life was over." She looked at her daughter, around us, at the gardens, at the children playing. "But here I found shelter. I found people who actually listened to me, who supported me, who showed me that I had value." And little by little I pulled myself back up. I found work, I saved money, I rented a house, and now I'm doing okay. Her eyes filled with tears. "I only came here to say thank you, and to tell you that what you built here, it changed my life. It saved my life and my daughter's." I felt a surge of emotion tighten in my chest. "You don't need to thank me," I said. "You did the hard part yourself. You were the one with the courage. You were the one who fought." "But I wouldn't have made it without this place, without you." She stepped closer and gave me a hug, quick, respectful. "Thank you," she whispered, "from the bottom of my heart." Then she walked away, her daughter in her arms, walking with a steady, confident stride. I stood there watching her go, and I finally understood. I understood why I had done all of it. Why I had turned the ranch into a sanctuary. Why I had given my money, my time, and my story. It was worth it. Every cent. Every minute, every tear, it was all worth it. Today, I'm 67 years old now. My body isn't what it used to be. My back aches, my knees complain, and my hair has gone completely white. But my mind is sharp, my heart is full, and life is worth living. Marlene is 55, still beautiful, still strong, still my partner in everything. Gabe is 29. He's married now with 2 children of his own, a boy and a girl. He works on sustainable agriculture projects. He makes a good living, and he's happy. Celia is 18. She just graduated high school and got into pre-med. She wants to be a pediatrician. She says she wants to take care of children, to protect those who are most fragile. She has her mother's heart. And me? I'm living, truly living, not on autopilot, not just surviving, but living, feeling, loving. I still go to the Haven, though less often now. Other people have taken the reins, good, competent people who believe in the mission. But sometimes I go and sit on the porch. I have a cup of coffee, talk to the folks staying there, and I tell them my story. The story of a man who lost everything, who gave up on life, who shut himself off from the world, until one day he found 2 people in the middle of nowhere, half dead, circled by vultures, and he decided to help. It was a simple decision, but it changed everything, because it saved them, and it saved him too, and it started a chain that continues to this day. a chain of hope, of new beginnings, of transformation. Final reflection. When I look back on all these years, I realize something. Life isn't about avoiding pain. It's not about never suffering or being perfect. Life is about choices. Every day we choose. We choose fear or we choose courage. We choose to close ourselves off or to open up. We choose to hoard our pain or to transform it into something good. I chose wrong many times. I shut down when I should have opened up. I was afraid when I should have been brave. I held on to pain when I should have let it go. But the day I found Marlene and Gabe, I made the right choice. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because it was right. And that choice changed everything. It taught me that we can always start over, that it's never too late, that there is always a chance. It taught me that love doesn't end, it just transforms, it expands, it finds new places to grow. It taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, it's about care, it's about being there. It taught me that pain can be repurposed. It can become a calling, it can become a light for others. And it taught me that it's worth it. It's always worth believing, trying, living, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, even when it seems impossible. Because in the end, what remains isn't what we acquired. It's not the money, the land, or the house. What remains is what we did for others. The love we gave, the lives we touched, and when my time comes to go, I want to go knowing that I made a difference, that I saved someone, that I loved for real, that I turned pain into hope, that I lived, truly lived, with everything that entails. Final words. Today, I'm sitting on the porch of my house in town. Marlene is inside making lunch. The smell of home cooking is filling the air. Gabe is coming over with his family. Celia is in her room studying. Life is simple, but it's good, so very good. I look at the sky, at the bright sun, at the clouds drifting by, and I give thanks. I'm thankful for the second chance, for the fresh start, for the family I built. I'm thankful for the scars, for the pain that shaped me and the tears that taught me. I'm thankful for Celia, who taught me how to love, for Marlene, who taught me how to live again, for Gabe, who taught me how to be a father. For my daughter, Celia, who showed me that life goes on. I'm thankful for every person who passed through the haven, for every life that was transformed, for every smile that returned. And I'm thankful for the day I decided to stop that truck, get out, and see what that crying was in the middle of the field. Because if I hadn't done that, none of this would exist. I wouldn't exist. Not really. I'd just be an old man, alone, waiting to die. But I chose differently. And that choice made all the difference. Marlene appears at the door. Come eat lunch, it's ready. I'm coming. I stand up. My body protests, but I stand. I walk into the house. The warm scent of home welcomes me. Gabe arrives with his family. Hugs, kisses, laughter. We sit at the table, all together. We hold hands. We give thanks. And we eat. Talking, laughing, living like a family, like it's meant to be. And while I eat, I look around, at the people I love, at the life I built. And I think it was worth it. Every tear, every pain, every fear, it was worth it because it brought me here, to this moment, where I am whole, where I am at peace, where I am home. And I smile, because I finally understand. Home was never a place. It wasn't the ranch. It wasn't the building. Home was always the people, the love, the connection. And as long as I have that, I will be home, always. Life is made of choices. And sometimes, a single choice, the choice to reach out, to help, to love, can change not just one life, but many. The legacy we leave isn't in what we accumulate, but in what we do for others. And in the end, what truly matters is having loved, having lived, and having made a difference, because that is what makes us truly human.